We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day's going well. This is Saturday. We're recording it on Friday afternoon, but you're listening to it on Saturday. And it's so often the case on Saturdays. We're fortunate enough to have Ed on the show. Ed,
I'm fortunate to be here.
the thing about it is, if you look at the comments, every time I have somebody on, a guest, there'll be a bunch of comments saying, "Well, that's my favorite guy you have on the show," and you get a lot of those too.
Mhm.
They like the fact that you're old and know shit, as opposed to the young people who don't know shit. Go figure. That would be more entertaining and more educational. But Ed's a man of a certain age.
Yes.
I He's older than I am. He's about 10 years older than I am, but he knows a lot of shit, and it's always good to hear from him to get his perspective of the shit we're seeing now. I tell people this. I get a lot of younger people going, "Oh my God, this is the worst ever. This has never happened before. We'll never get through this." And if you've lived as long as we have, we've never seen anything like this before, but we've seen some shit.
We have. And just for perspective on that, I was just thinking about it the early, you were born what year? 59,
60,
58,
60.
60. Okay. See, I was born in 49. And I lived through that period. I didn't, of course, become aware of much until probably about 54, 55 when I went to school and started to gradually hearing things about what was going on in the world and didn't really realize how restricted we were. Looking back now, I can see that what's going on right now is not that different from that. The FBI was very active. We had our boogeymen. It was the communists back then. And we had Dwight Eisenhower, Republican president, war hero, so forth. He did exactly what Trump's doing. He deported a huge amount of, quote, undocumented people, um, rounded them up. We didn't learn about that in school. I didn't know that until probably Trump started doing it. And people started hitting historical things that I was not aware of because I was 6, 7, 8 years old. But they rounded up lots of Hispanic people and deported them out of the country. People who had been here for many years, people who had businesses and homes and so forth. So that's not new. Dwight Eisenhower sent the airborne into Little Rock, Arkansas, when they were having riots about school desegregation. Used the military. Okay, we had gotten away from that. The 60s had a huge impact. This idea that people were being sent to a country to fight and kill people that we had no real beef with, that we didn't understand why it was going on. But all of these pundits were saying, oh, we got to do it or the whole world will be communist except us, which was bullshit. When we figured that out and said, no, this stops now, it changed America. And we operated on that for many years now. There's pushback. That's what's going on. Some of them are trying to turn it back to the 50s, but there's a real element there that wants to turn it back to the Middle Ages, quite frankly, where it's a feudal thing. This time it will be the tech guys instead of the kings who will be calling the shots, but that's what they're looking for. A few people at the top, a few merchants, and then everybody else surfs. That's the Republican plan. That's the conservative plan. That's Project 2025, whatever you want to call it. So unless you want to be a serf, you better get interested and fast because it's working.
You talk about the 60s, and I was young in the 60s, but I remembered there was a lot of shit going on. And I think why it may seem worse now is because back in the 60s, in terms of media, we didn't know shit. I'm thinking a lot of the stuff we're seeing today was going on then. We were just less sophisticated, worse informed. And I'll just make a note too. If people think pushback from Americans isn't going to do anything, the whole reason they ended the Vietnam War was because of hippies protesting. I'm convinced of that.
Oh, absolutely. It would not have happened otherwise. We've learned so much. And that's why we must constantly re-examine history. For example, the reason that everything happened in the 60s was because people had the income to go to college, either on
Right.
the GI Bill, the parents, or the parents footing the bill for the students because, for their children because it was affordable. People became educated. People said, "Wait a minute, why are we allowing this segment of the minority segment of the population to still be treated like slaves, essentially? And why are women disenfranchised to a large extent? And why are they under such restrictions? And why do I need to go to this foreign country and shoot these people just because somebody, some oligarch, somebody in business, somebody thinks it's a real good idea to do that?" Uh, we started to question things because we had knowledge for the first time. That's why they want to get rid of that. That's why they want to keep as many people out of college and being exposed to actual facts. And just all of that is premeditated, and they're doing it, and we have to stop it.
Example of how things can change as far as attitudes, as far as public opinion. If you were to go talk to anybody right now about the Vietnam War, I'm willing to
Mhm.
bet nobody will say that was a good idea. We needed to do it. They all say that was stupid. It was pointless. We shouldn't have done it. But during the Vietnam War, we had a lot of those hawks like we do today. You got to go fight for your country. If you don't fight for your country, you're not patriotic. And a lot of the older people and middle-aged people were really pushing. They were solidly behind the Vietnam War because the American government said we're behind the
Yeah.
war. But over time, seeing deaths and death counts on news channels, um, hearing the stories, all those attitudes changed with with information as it came by. So we can change entire attitudes about stuff. Nobody would say Vietnam was a great war now, but a lot of
No.
people did beforehand.
Well, this is you don't even have to go back to Vietnam if you're looking for stupid wars. Go to the Iraq wars. Go to
Yeah.
Afghanistan. Both of these were stupid. They were destined to fail from the beginning. They were begun on false pretenses. They were used to generate huge amounts of income for American companies ruled over by politicians like Dick Cheney and others. And it was a commercial enterprise. And Smedley Butler, who is a little known but a very important figure in history, he was general in charge of the Marine Corps, and a bunch of industrialists came to him in the 1930s and said, we want to have a coup and we want you to lead it." And he said no and turned them in. And Franklin Roosevelt told him, "I'm going to give you a pass this time. You even look like you're doing anything like this again, you'll wind up in prison." And that was the way it was. Smedley wrote a book in which he said, "There's never been a war that wasn't just a commercial enterprise." I respect that theory because it's true.
I think I was going to say that every war we've had since World War II has been a commercial enterprise. I think World War II may have been a commercial enterprise, certainly profitable for a lot of people. But when they bombed Pearl Harbor and some of the things going on in Germany, we were kind of pushed into it. That was the right move to make. And you knew that because people were anxious to volunteer for service then. Nobody's ever been anxious to do it since, whether it be Korea, Vietnam, or any of the other ones. All those were seemingly pointless in the end because when it was done, we went to Korea to fight against the communists. Well, the communists are still there. We went to fight the communists in Vietnam. Well, they're still there. So we didn't really accomplish anything in those places, but we lost a lot of people and people made a lot of money.
Well, look at it this way. You have North Korea, where you have a despot. He's no more communist than he is a Rastafarian. I mean, he may claim that title, but quite frankly, he and a few people get all the money. Everybody else is a servant, and that's not communism. Communism, everybody's supposed to be equal. South Korea is a tremendous industrial and trade masterpiece. I mean, it's one of the most, it's one of the richest countries on earth, right? So no communists there. Vietnam, same thing. They may say we're a communist country, but they're not. They're as capitalistic as anybody on the planet. So the whole communism thing was a ruse, okay? Um, like most things are. Anytime someone in government tells me somebody to be afraid of, I figure, okay, that's your latest bugaboo, and I'm not afraid of it because you're just trying to gin up something that will make you money. And quite frankly, I believe the problem that we have now in this country is that we are corporatized and everything is financialized. You throw out a word that um, businesses used to be in business to make money. They either produced a product or a service that people would pay for, right? So it was an even exchange. You got something back. Now the corporations are just in the business of making money. I'll give you a couple of examples here. Let's look at healthcare. Where I live, there are two entities that provide healthcare. There's Ballad, which is a government, which is an insurance monopoly, and it is a monopoly. It was put in place to be a monopoly. It covers Southwest Virginia and Tennessee, and they have no competition per se, and it was on purpose because then they could concentrate on giving health care. They said, but that's not what has happened. As a matter of fact, costs have gone up remarkably, of course, and services have gone way down. And for example, I have not personally seen a doctor in 2.5 years. I always see a PA or someone like that who's under the supervision of a doctor, but they have fewer and fewer doctors. They've been cutting them back. And the other entity is called Holston Medical Group. It's smaller. I found out recently that they are being run by a group called Optum. Optum is a subsidiary of United Healthcare, which you're probably familiar with. Optum functions in the way that a private equity firm functions, which means they take over a business with the idea of making it function better, and then they steal everything and eventually bankrupt it. So Holston Medical Group will disappear fairly soon, I think, as it is. It's like pirates, you know. They would board a ship and they would take everything valuable and leave an empty husk floating. That's exactly what they will do with Holston Medical Group. And now this government-sanctioned monopoly has announced they may be acquired by a hedge fund, which is where it functions exactly the same way that private equity does. They come in, they load it up with debt, they bankrupt it, steal the assets, and sail off into the sunset while it crumbles. So our healthcare here in this country, in this section of the country, will soon be non-existent. And guess what I see cropping up? Two of them in my little hometown here alone. These small PA or nurse practitioner run storefront health providers. That's where we're headed.
The thing too about United Health, and I know some people that work for United Health, and, but aren't they under a huge investigation for Medicare fraud?
Of course they are. And this Optum thing, though, is it's just a stealth thing. It's a Trojan horse. I mean, um, they are doing this. They're doing it with vet clinics. They're doing it with all kinds of industries. They come in with this idea of making them more efficient, and what they do is rob them. And that's what's going on. I'm sure United Healthcare is in that same business, and they are all guilty of Medicare fraud. Every one of them.
Folks do, because I've got people asking me about this. Um, when you get to 65, you take Medicare, right?
Yeah.
And you have an option to take regular Medicare, and you pay a certain amount, or you can take Medicare Advantage, which tends to be cheaper but more limiting. And they said, "What do you want?" Well, Medicare Advantage is cheaper. Yeah, but that's a commercial healthcare industry. I just spent my life in that shit. I chose to just go straight Medicare. I didn't want to do the Medicare Advantage because I kept hearing about the fraud thing and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking down the road, that Medicare Advantage could be a problem. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's what I'm supposing here based on what I'm hearing. What do you know about the difference between Medicare Advantage and straight Medicare? What do you do?
I actually have a Medicare Advantage plan through Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it's worked okay for me until now. I had a major medical thing where I had to have an operation, and it covered 90% of it.
Okay.
Um, some organizations around here, I can't speak for everywhere, do not accept Medicare, but they do accept the Medicare Advantage plans. So that seemed to
Yeah.
me to be a better solution here
Okay.
because I didn't want to have to spend so much time looking for someone every time who accepted Medicare. Now the that's up to the particular provider as to whether they
I think
do
it'd
or
be the
not.
opposite, though. I would
Yeah,
think it
could
would
be.
be the opposite. No, I mean,
Well,
if I was going to pick Medicare or Medicare Advantage, I understood Medicare Advantage to be more limiting. And I assume everybody takes fucking Medicare because it's fucking Medicare.
yeah, but they don't. No, it
Wow.
because they Medicare says this is what we pay for an appendectomy. So the provider, the surgeon can say, well, I need more than that. So no, we're not going to do that. But with the 90% of the time with the Medicare Advantage plan, there will be someone in their network who will take it. It's you just have to call them and say, well, which provider should I use for this, and they'll tell you. So it's a matter of convenience for me. It's I think it comes out about a wash so far as the actual money goes.
So
I mean,
basic,
it
so
come
so basically, when you get sick and you need surgery, Medicare Advantage or even Medicare, they're like doing what every other government entity does and looking for the low bid.
yeah, essentially,
Wow.
which is exactly what you want when it's life or death, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now Tennessee has added a wrinkle now where they can use their conscience too. For example, and we talked about it last time, where this young lady was denied prenatal care because she wasn't married, and it's perfectly legal in Tennessee for that particular provider to do that.
Oh,
The
fucked up.
Yeah, very much so. But reimbursement rates and so forth. There's all kinds of things. Like I say, so far I've been happy with this. Should I move somewhere else? I might choose to just go back to regular medical care. I don't know. Medicare, I mean. I'm hearing some things about that, what the Trump administration may do that will impact Medicare. I don't know about that yet. I should be more knowledgeable on that, but at this point, what I have is working for me, and I do think that we needed a public option for um, the Obamacare, which we didn't get. Um, I think that they're going to do everything they can to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. They're going to do everything they can to get rid of that. So we'll see. There's a lot of flux going on here now, and we have to try to pay attention. But so far, they've been pretty good at distracting us in a lot of ways. We started off talking about Trump flying to Alaska. I wonder if they've told him he's going to Alaska instead of Russia yet.
Bring that. We are recording this before that summit. And I've been talking about the
Yeah.
summit all week. Uh, and there's one rule of thumb with Donald Trump. When people ask me, how do you think that summit's going to go? Um, at best, nothing's going to come out of it. At worst, he's going to embarrass himself and this country. The one absolute with Donald Trump is no matter what he does, he will fuck it up. I
Yeah.
mean, Vladimir Putin has been playing Donald Trump all along, and Donald Trump's too stupid to even realize it. As I understood, this summit had two purposes. First of all, to distract from the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, which it's not doing. And secondly, because his special envoy, Witkoff, basically went to talk to Vladimir Putin. And he told Donald Trump, because he's got to tell Donald Trump something positive because he's
Mhm.
terrified of him, like they
Mhm.
all are, that, well, Putin's agreed to give away some of his territory and then take some of Zelensky's territory, which is weird because neither one of them wants to give up any territory.
No.
So now Donald Trump, and that was exposed that he basically said he lied. So now Donald Trump is stuck going there because he can't admit he's wrong. So he's got to double down. But he's walking into a fucking wolf's den with Vladimir Putin, who is a horrible human being, but a lot smarter than Donald Trump. He plays Donald Trump every fucking time. He's going to get played this time. I don't know how this will all turn out. I guarantee in the end it won't be good for Donald Trump or us.
No, I was glad to see that even in Alaska, there's going to be plenty of protesters out there. But Trump is
Yeah.
already saying stuff like, he's trying to make it into a WWE match, him against Putin kind of thing. But he also thinks like Putin's a friend of mine. He's not a bad guy, even though he's killing thousands of people. He's not a bad guy just because he's a ruthless despot and murders people all the time. Remember the guy whose plane fell out of the sky right after he rolled his tanks up? This is and there was another Russian oligarch who jumped off a building the other day. So yeah, Trump's got it right. To Putin is he's not a bad guy. He's just a fucking monster.
Hear about Donald Trump when he talks about shit. Gavin Newsom was talking about this. Um, and it reminds me of trying to think when I was doing the traffic reports,
Yeah,
um, people love to hear you, people love to catch radio guys or podcasting guys say something wrong. Like
yeah.
we're supposed to be infallible, that we get paid to be infallible. And I've been wrong about so many things, and I admit it. It's no shame to me. I don't fucking care. But I had this one guy call me one time, and I pick up the phone, and he goes, I was just listening to Mike. You tell Mike that he's wrong about this, and you tell him this, and you tell him that. And if he doesn't do that, I'm not listening to that. And I said, dude, this is Mike. And he goes, hey, how you doing? And then he's friendly. That's exactly what Donald Trump does. He did it to Gavin Newsom. He's talking shit about Gavin Newsom. And then Gavin says he comes into the meeting and he starts talking about all the cool stuff he's doing. Like they have an inside track that nobody knows about. And then it's just all performative. Well, it is all performative with Donald Trump. He said that Vladimir Putin better come here with ceasefire plans or there would be consequences. Well, there was going to be consequences after 90 days. Nothing. He gave him another 10 days. Nothing. That was 10 days ago. There's still
Mhm.
nothing. And so now he's going to walk into this. And Vladimir Putin he's just doing whatever the fuck he wants. But Vlad's kind of in a tight spot now, too.
You know what all of this is about? I don't think Trump gives a flying fuck about
No.
Ukraine, about anybody dying or anywhere in the world. But he keeps sticking his nose into these regional conflicts and claiming like he's accomplished something, like between India and Pakistan and different places where there's conflict. He wants a Nobel Peace Prize. That is what he wants. It just really galls him that he has not gotten a Nobel Peace Prize, and other people have that he dislikes intensely. So he is going. He is. This is what this is all about. He wants to be part of the negotiation so he can have that sitting on his desk, hanging on his wall, or whatever. That's all it is. That's all it is. He really is that petty.
Tell you how petty I think he is. His whole thing with Obama stems
Hmm.
from that reporters' dinner where
Yeah.
Obama called him out and talked shit about it. The
Hmm.
whole idea of a Nobel Peace Prize is strictly because Obama has one.
Exactly.
Obama lives in that fucker's head rent free, and he can't get around that. So he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. So the guy doesn't even understand what the Nobel Peace Prize is because
No.
he goes out and causes the opposite of peace everywhere he
Hmm.
goes. So now give me the award so I can put the Nobel Peace Prize next to my FIFA football trophy that I didn't fucking earn. You know, he's really about. That's what people have to understand. He's not for the country. He's not for the Republicans. It's about making me look good, meaning Donald Trump. And I want to see what you think about this. On the Jeffrey Epstein thing. I think Donald Trump is missing the whole point. Prior to the election, all the Trump fucks were fed the red meat. We want to see the Jeffrey Epstein files. Donald Trump jumped on that bandwagon because he thought it would help him. So now after the election, he's not releasing it, which seems kind of suspicious. But then people are trying to tie him to the Jeffrey Epstein files. That he's buddies. Wall Street Journal points out that they're buddies, and he sues them. He also is dealing with this Ghislaine Maxwell, which we'll talk about, and he's all about doing her favors because she no doubt has a lot of dirt on him and is terrifying to him. But he's so focused right now on just extricating himself from the whole files thing, exonerating himself from any connection to Jeffrey Epstein. He's missing the point because prior to the election, none of the Trump fucks thought he was in the mix with Jeffrey Epstein. That's not why they wanted to see the files. They wanted to see the files because they wanted to see the files and all the Democrats and the fucking cabal and all that shit. That's what they wanted to see. So if Donald Trump accomplishes what he wants, exonerating himself from Jeffrey Epstein, that doesn't answer the fucking question. But he's so fucking self-centered. He's focusing on the wrong fucking thing.
Yeah, I mean, beside the point that he's outed himself about 15 times over the years, that he is absolutely guilty of that sort of thing. Um, I think that people should concentrate a little bit on that the page in the birthday book that he sent to Epstein, the secrets that they share. I mean, there's something going on there that yet has not been exposed. And you mentioned pedophiles and so forth. I'm so sick of that. And every day there's another Republican legislator, either on the state or the national level, who turns up with child pornography and their connections to pedophilia every day practically. I don't know how there are any of them left.
I've said this about it just shows the level of mental depravity or mental illness by all those people that follow Donald Trump. Um, Prior to the election, 26 women accused him of a sexual assault. He's been adjudicated as a rapist. He showed up in picture after picture and video after video with Jeffrey Epstein. We've got the birthday card. We've got a lawsuit that was filed against Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump regarding the rape of a 13-year-old girl. And you have all these things going around it. And they don't see, well, maybe Donald Trump might be in this stuff. But I got to tell you, if there's a video, a short video of maybe Biden leaning down to kiss his grandson after his grandson's father and his son died, oh, he's a fucking pedophile. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Where there's smoke, there's fire. This is a fucking forest fire burning down in front of them, and they can't even fucking respond to that.
Exactly. And when Trump comes out and say the reason that I fell out was dead with Epstein is because he stole a 15-year-old towel girl from me, what does that tell you?
And that shows how stupid he is because prior to that, everybody was saying, well, it was because of a financial deal. Uh, Donald Trump uh, aced out Jeffrey Epstein. And I can see that causing a rift between those two because, they're both weirdos. But to not just say, yeah, that was it. It said, no, he stole a girl from me. Shut up, you stupid fucker. You're just making this worse. And this is what he always does. He always makes it worse.
Well, I don't think he has a filter anymore. I mean, his first term, he had a few people around him who said, "Don't say that. No, 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 don't say that." There's nobody doing that anymore. So whatever comes in his mind goes out his mouth. We see that. We saw the other day when a reporter asked him about people being kept, the deportees being kept in Florida, and he does 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes on Florida. Nothing to do with the question, just stream of consciousness about the state of Florida that pops into his mind. He can't stop himself. It just keeps rolling.
These guys that thinks he's so smart that he knows he can talk himself out of anything. What he doesn't understand is he just makes it worse every time he talks, and he just cannot stop himself from talking. And this has got to be the thing that's driving the Republicans nuts. First and foremost, Donald Trump, once you understand his psyche, he's easy to manipulate. Pat him on the
Exactly.
head, tell him he's a genius, and say, do this, they'll love that. And he'll do it. Where they have a problem, though, is that when Donald Trump gets caught up in something or he gets asked the wrong question and he loses his temper, which he frequently does, then he just does anything. He says anything. He burns every bridge, scorches the earth, doesn't think about what he's saying. And this has got to drive the Republicans nuts because every day he makes it worse for Republicans.
Exactly. And I just noticed that the latest Pew polls have him way down in everything. I mean, it's like 60% to 30. Um, 68 to 35, something like that. I don't have the figures right in front of me, but this is both on his foreign policy, his tariffs, his handling of the economy, his handling of the deportations, all of that. There are a few, the MAGAs are still there, but that's about it. Even the right-leaning independents and Republicans he's starting to lose them. Now this is encouraging, but I'm telling everybody we are in a battle. This is a crux here that we have to win. There's no doubt about it because you can see what's happening in DC. He's going to expand that. Now, the thing is, there's only so many troops. People may not realize this, but enlistment in the Army has been way down, and the same is true for National Guard and reserves and so forth. So at some point, we outnumber them. And some of them are probably really hating that they're having to do this. Some of the people from my area got deployed up to Washington, D.C. These people have jobs, they have lives. They sign up to do one weekend a month and meetings here and there and that sort of thing. And they enjoy the extra money and few benefits that go with being in the Guard. And but they don't figure on this any more than they figured on being deployed to Iraq either. But they were. You'd think they'd learn by now. But at any rate, this is not going to last. People are going to get tired of this. No, I don't want to go to Washington. It's deer season, that sort of thing. It's going to come
Exactly.
into it.
I mean, people join the National Guard understanding if there's an emergency, we're kind of a fail-safe for them. But when they get up there, they can quickly realize there is no emergency. This is absolutely bullshit. And there's going to come a point where, like you say, you take them out of their lives and out of their jobs and away from their families. They're going to get tired of this bullshit. Now, Mike, and I'm curious if you agree with me. With narcissist bullies, they have kind of an arc. They're on the way up and they're powerful and people like them from a distance. They get to the top and they're doing all kinds of damage. But then they start the descent and they get to a point where nothing's working anymore. Everything's failing. And then they start flailing, which is typically the most dangerous point. And I think that's
Yep,
where we're at right now. You got the
I
economy
agree.
going. You got the deportations going. You got the Jeffrey Epstein things. It always happens with narcissists. They think they're too smart and they do a lot of stuff and they just react to everything that's going on and then it stops working and then it becomes overwhelming and then it crashes on top of it. And I think we're in the, I won't even say the early stages, the middle stages of that point, that crash. I just get that sense.
I hope so. I really, really do. I don't want it to become the new normal. I don't want people because we started off talking about the 1950s that I lived through and some of the things that were going on there. Suppression of civil rights. I mean, it was a battle, and black people led the fight for their own rights. And eventually, right thinking white people joined in. But it was the black people who got it going, okay? And they were the ones who bled, and they were the ones on the front line, and they were the ones getting their heads broken and so forth. But they stood up for their rights, and eventually, right thinking white people began to join. And that's when, the civil rights movement became legitimate because in this country, if it ain't white, it ain't right for a while, right? So I thought that we were on the road to equality. Now we see the pushback, but what I'm afraid of is that enough people will start to see this as the norm and they will start saying this ain't so bad because it's not affecting them directly. I did a TikTok on this and a while back. There was a guy named Stanley Milgram, psychologist, who developed a theory that the reason Hitler was able to take over and do so much damage in Germany was that the German people were prone to being led by essentially a fascist leader, a strong leader. So there was something in the national makeup that made Hitler possible. So he created this experiment, and he went to a college campus and he set up a lab, and then he recruited male participants. Some were blue collar, some were white collar. It was a mixture, right? And the way it worked was this: that the doctor was fake in this laboratory that was set up. There was a fake doctor and there was a fake participant. Now, the participant had been told to memorize pairs of words like black, white, dog, cat, whatever, right? A long list of pairs of words. He was put in one room, and the doctor was in another room, and then they brought in the people, the volunteers that had agreed to participate in this experiment. Now, they were put at a table with a button, and they were told that the button was connected to the person in the other room, and it was an electrode, and it would give them an electric shock to the person in the other room if they gave a wrong answer. If the doctor gave black and they didn't say white, then he would cue the guy to press the button and give the participant an electric shock. And it was supposed to determine if punishment could spur people to remember better, right? So they would start the experiment, and for a while there, the guy would go along and get them all right, and then he'd miss one. The doctor would point, guy'd hit the button, and you get, oh, well, also this thing was, there was a graph that showed, or a dial or something, that you could increase the electricity. I think it was from like 10 volts to 450 volts, something like that. So each time the guy missed one, they'd turn it up a notch. He'd miss again, he'd point, the doctor would point, the guy would press the button, and the responses would eventually get to the point where the guy in the next room was actually screaming. And the doctor would point again and turn the dial up. I think it was like 80% of the people went all the way up to the scale, even though after about halfway, there was no response. There were no screams, there was nothing. The guy wasn't even answering. The doctor would just keep saying, hit the button again, hit the button again, hit the button again. And most of the people who participated, there were some who dropped out, but a goodly portion of them went all the way to the maximum on the dial. So Stanley Milgram said, there's no point in going to Germany. You know, we just proved that anybody anywhere can be trained to submit to authority. And just by being in a place where there seems to be a legitimate authority figure telling you to do it, and you will do it. Now that's where we are now. We are the
Yeah,
part
but
people.
people will make the comparison to Nazi Germany to what's going on here and Hitler and all this stuff. But there's one big difference between what we are now and what was going on in Germany. When Hitler came to power, they had a lot of problems in Germany. You know, Hitler makes the trains run on time, and they had some economic problems and stuff. So they went to Hitler as a choice because they didn't like what was going on, and then they got sucked into it. In this particular situation, the economy was good. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but things were going along smoothly. Now that Donald Trump is here, everything's going bad. So it's just the opposite. So people will
Except,
probably, okay.
ex- except the people who support Trump don't know that. They think it was horrible under Biden. They don't realize that we had, in the words of the Wall Street Journal, an economy that was, quote, the envy of the world in the last year of Biden's presidency. They think it was horrible. They think it was awful. We had 7% inflation, but it was down to 2% by the time Biden was gone. Fox News didn't tell them that. OAN didn't tell them that. They told them it's horrible, or they featured stuff that had nothing to do with the economy. That Biden is a vegetable, or Biden's a pedophile, or whatever it may be. All of those in Congress, all of the House people, Jim Jordan's and all those people had all these committees going after people and spreading misinformation and so forth. The people that voted for Trump didn't realize how well they had it. They thought it was horrible and that Trump was going to fix it.
You thought, and I will give you that there's 25, maybe 30% of the people out there that will never get it, never comprehend it. They'll take the beating and they'll still think it's Biden's fault. But the vast majority of the people maybe thought it was bad under Biden, but now they're personally going to experience it. I mean, take the farmers in Nebraska. Now, I don't know if they'll understand what's going on, but they are literally on the verge of bankruptcy. They've got no
Yeah,
place to sell their crops. They have no fucking money. We've got
no
people
workers.
that no workers. Yeah, exactly. It's not only no workers, it's the tariffs, it's all this stuff. And these are bad times.
Yeah.
Eventually they got to blame somebody. I mean, if they want to just, be destroyed and be swept away, that's fine. If you're too stupid to know any better. But I got to think when you say people who voted for Donald Trump, you got a bunch of people that voted for Donald Trump because they only vote for Republicans and will not vote for Democrats. Not all of them are caught up in the cult per se. They're stupid, but they're not caught up in the cult. When they start feeling pain, they're going to respond to that. And it'll be pain that they didn't have under Biden. They may not vote Democrat, but they may not vote at all. And I'm cool with that.
Well, and this is the thing. People don't pay attention, and I don't understand how they cannot. Um, for example, right now, groceries. I use that word because that's one Trump thinks he invented or something. I don't know. He didn't really know the word groceries or what it meant. That was obvious until somebody explained it to him, which tells you a lot about Trump, right? Um, but I go to the grocery store. I can promise you that I'm paying twice as much as I did under Biden. Yeah. It hasn't gone up 20%. It hasn't gone up 30%. It's gone up 50%. If I was spending $70 before, I'm spending 140. Fortunately, I own a hybrid vehicle, so I'm paying next to nothing for gas, but that's because of the hybrid, not because gas prices are down. Um, Financially, we are way worse off. Rents are through the roof. That's why people are homeless. They can't afford to pay rent.
This is that, people like us, we don't like higher prices.
No.
We don't want to pay, it tightens our belts, certainly, but we'll get through it and we can still eat and we can still do it. There's a lot of people out there that raise in prices is devastating to them. They don't
Yeah.
have any extra discretionary money to pay an extra 30% or 40% for fucking food. And that's going to take its toll on people, especially people in the red states that are just getting by when their SNAP things are gone and prices go up, they can't fucking eat.
No.
So, and put it this way, if at that point they don't realize, and this is going to sound horrible, but this is just who I am. If they lose their SNAP because of Donald Trump and the prices go too high and they just can't afford to eat and they still can't see it, in my mind, they deserve to fucking starve. If you're that stupid, you deserve it.
Well, I'm betting you that a lot of people on Snap did not vote. There's this perception, I think, in this country that everybody votes. That's not true. In my section of the country, I'd say it's maybe 20% of the people who vote. Now, they love Donald Trump down here, but most of them don't vote, so it doesn't matter all that much if they support Trump. But unfortunately, the people who did vote, he did get a majority, more than a majority, of course, but he would have had a super majority of all his supporters had voted. But these people, they probably never voted in their lives. They don't really know how, and they're afraid of being embarrassed, so they don't try to learn. And I don't think it's that different in rural America in general. Sure, there's a lot of people who vote, but there are a lot who do not. And there are a lot of people, disenfranchised people, I call them economically disenfranchised, because they can't afford. I know people who work 12-hour days, 7 days a week. When are they going to vote? Are the polls open at midnight when they get off work? No. You know, do they have a chance to go in before work? Probably not. They don't vote because they don't have the opportunity.
To make a comparison, you've got Tennessee, or I'm talking to Jace about Texas, two red states, and you both make the same complaint that people just don't fucking vote. That's the
Right.
problem. They just don't vote because there's more Democrats in Texas than there are Republicans, but they don't vote. But you come to a blue state like Minnesota, where you used to live, or you probably live in the future, and we probably have the highest percentage of people that vote in this blue state than anywhere else in the country. I
Well,
think it
and
has
when
a
I
lot to do with education, and I think it has a lot to do with being dumb and being smart, or at least
well,
intelligent.
right, when I lived in Minnesota, I lived in the neighborhood where you were born, where your parents lived, and it was the votingest place in Minnesota was my neighborhood. Um, and I think that was largely a legacy of blue collar unions, possibly. But the fact is, most everybody in that neighborhood, South Minneapolis, voted, or they caucused before, then they primaried, and they always voted. It was pretty much the biggest turnout anywhere in the state was right there.
And you can look at, what we have here in terms of it going blue state. If you vote and if you have average or above average intelligence, you're going to vote blue. And unfortunately, a lot of people, there's alleged to be smart people that vote for uh, the Republicans, but they aren't voting because they know it's right. They vote because they think it benefits them particularly. The troubling
Well,
part is the poor people that vote red makes no goddamn sense because they're voting against their own self-interest and they're going to get fucking killed by the people that they are supporting.
exactly. So that's an information problem. But and it's also a religious problem because their pastors telling them not to vote Democrat, and that is highly pervasive, especially in rural America, but not only in rural America, but that has a big thing to do with it. The other problem is the gerrymandering. We're seeing that going on in Texas right now, where they are actually going to add 5 seats, right? And they're going to get rid of Jasmine Crockett because they're going to, gerrymander it so that her district will not have any Democrats in it. So she will lose her seat in Congress, one of the most effective legislators we have, certainly most articulate. But California and some of the other states are probably going to, double down and where Texas added 5, California will add 10. But it's still the gerrymandering is the thing. I know here where I live, Democrats are very demoralized because they've been gerrymandered out of their vote counting. And that is also very prevalent in the red states. Blue states do it too, absolutely. But and the people will say, well, it's equal. Democrats do it too. But the thing is, the Democrats in the Biden during the Biden administration tried to outlaw gerrymandering for themselves as well as the Republicans. They voted for it. Every Republican voted against it. So what does that tell you?
They know that they're losing ground, they're losing the grip, so they have to try to game the system in order to stay in power. Like people have said, why don't they just take a state, put a grid down, and these are the districts,
Exactly.
regardless of who's in that district? That makes sense. Now in Texas, if they take away Jasmine Crockett's seat, that may bite them in the ass because then Jasmine Crockett has no other choice but to run for the Senate.
Yeah.
And she's looking pretty strong against Cornyn or Paxton, especially
Yeah.
with the bullshit that Texas is going through with the Republican power. Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be hilarious if she lost her seat but ended up being one of the senators from fucking Texas?
Absolutely. And it gives like Lauren Boebert, of course, saw that she was going to lose in her old district, so she moved to a different one.
Right.
Yeah, and was reelected. So yeah, always it's a terrible gerrymandering is a terrible thing. It always has been. It should always have been illegal. We should eliminate the electoral college because it's ancient and actually was simply for the slave states after the Civil War to have some power. Yeah, all of these things, and it should be done away with. But I'm hoping that the Trump excesses will give us a second chance in the same way that the Republicans screwing up the economy that led to the Great Depression and everybody knowing that kept them out of power for 20 years. I'm hoping that the excesses of Trump will do the same. I'm praying that that's the case, but we can't give up. I don't know if you saw it the other day, but in Washington, D.C., I think it was D.C., it was D.C. or L.A., one of the two, where the troops are, the ICE and all of that. One of them got hit with a sandwich. They chased the guy down and they're going to, hit him with a felony or something. But still, that was significant. It's sandwich time, people. I mean, think about
The
it. It
fuck out
didn't
of
it didn't harm the guy who got hit with the subway, and it looked like a hoagie to me. But it sent a message. It's a sandwich this time.
them. The mistakes Democrats have made over the years when it comes to Republicans is something I learned when I was very young and dealt with bullies. You can't go get into a fight with a bully and be winning the fight and then go, there you go. Don't want to mess with me again because they will mess with you again. You've got
Yeah.
to put them down and you've got to put them down permanently, at least for a short period of time, so he doesn't jump on your back. And that's the thing. There's got to be a certain amount of killer instinct in the Democratic Party because they're going down. We've got to put them down, show no mercy, and keep the motherfuckers down. That's the one thing, whether I think Gavin Newsom would be a good president or not, I'm not sure. I know he'd be better than Donald Trump, but he's the one guy showing the fight. There are people on TV, I swear to God, and this pisses me off. Um, Texas wants to gerrymander their state and try to game the system. And so Gavin Newsom comes in, all right, motherfuckers, then we'll do it too. And we'll do it worse. And then people in the media will say, well, two wrongs don't make a right. This is terrible for our democracy. What's the alternative? Let them continue to tear down democracy and just let them go and we take the high road? Well, we've been doing that for fucking 10 years. It doesn't work. You got to get in the mud with them. You got to fight on their level because that's all they fucking understand. And that's why I suggest with Gavin Newsom or whoever else, whether they gerrymander Texas or not, California should do it. That's what they respect, getting slapped in the fucking snout.
Well, I haven't looked yet today to know for sure, but I know the House, either the Senate or the House one in Texas passed it. I forget which, and the other one is slated to do it today, I think. So it's going to happen. It's a done
It's going to
deal.
happen. I think I saw today earlier that only 95 people showed up in the House. So they
Yeah.
didn't have a quorum yet today.
No.
So maybe Monday, maybe Monday.
Yeah, it really depends on, what I don't know. I mean, the governor was trying to replace which he can't do, the Democrats who fled the state. He was calling them cowards and everything when actually they're standing on principle. He's the coward. Um, um, it's unfortunate that he is disabled. I think he gets in some sympathy for that, but I'm sorry, he's just an asshole in a wheelchair. Sorry. If he was standing on his feet, he'd be an asshole on his feet.
He said that. And I said, I would never think badly of somebody because of their color, their religion, their physical disabilities, their mental disabilities. I would never um, think badly of them because of that. But at the same time, if I've got a person of color, a person of the Jewish persuasion, disabled person, and they're fucking assholes and they're criminal, I don't give those motherfuckers a pass. It doesn't matter if he's disabled. You know, the little jokes about him, I don't fucking care because he's cruel as fuck to people. He deserves that in return, regardless of what his disabilities are. We can't
Yeah,
cut
he's
him any slack.
yeah, he's telling his police at the border to shove women and children back into the river. He's putting razor wire in the water. I mean, this is beyond cruel. It's actually criminal.
We've talked about this. Will, who's on the show frequently, says there will be a reckoning.
Yes.
And I tend
There-
to
but-
believe that. You know, Robert Wright came out. I've repeated this a bunch of times, and I'll do it again because I'm old. It's not that I forget. I just like the comment. Robert Wright pointed out situations in our country, like during the Depression and all that stuff, when it was very hard right. And typically, what comes out of that in the end, when that finally dies, is a much more progressive attitude. And we saw that with FDR, with all the things, Social Security, whatever came out. And that's the one thing I think we can hope for. Um, Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's going to have to burn down and get really bad. But when we come out of it, people are going to be more supportive of more progressive ideas, I think.
I hope you're right. They should be because progressive ideas are what made this country good for more people. I mean, quite frankly, up until about 1930, if you were lucky to be born a white person with money, then you were pretty good and everybody else was fucked to a degree.
Right.
And that's why it's minorities and immigrants for sure, and poor white people for the most part as well. I was born into a society where uh, I thought Indians were really bad people and cowboys were really good people, I mean, because that's what the movies and the TV shows told me. It was always the savages scalping the innocent settlers and so forth. I didn't realize that they were fighting for their lives, that it was genocide and it was the white people who were doing it. I know that now. But I have contemporaries who never figured that out. And that's the problem. I think that, quite frankly, if my theory is if your parents are involved with you and first of all tell you stories that expand your mind so that you want to find out stories for yourself, so you learn to read and you learn to think and so forth. So many kids don't get that, and if you don't get it by a certain point, it's never going to happen. I know people that I went to school with that I could reliably state that they have never read a book in their life and they never will, even though they were required to, and they didn't read it. Maybe they got some cliff notes if they cared, or they had somebody tell, well, what happened in the thing? So they got by or whatever, but they cannot read, and consequently, they never really developed critical thinking skills. All they have to fall back on is instinct and what they were told. And that is your basic conservative voter.
We have that. That sometimes we're wrong. And some people will say, you don't like being wrong. And I go, I don't like being wrong. I
No.
know I'm wrong. I've been married 42 years, and my wife points out I'm wrong every fucking day of those 42 years. So I have no problem with it. There's no shame in it. But when Donald Trump got elected, I said, Kirk said, maybe you even thought this, that it's going to get bad, but there's guardrails, there's rules, there's laws. And even the Republicans aren't going to let it get fucking crazy and you let him do anything he wants. I was fucking wrong. Did that surprise you at all? That nobody pushed back under any fucking circumstances? They folded every time, no matter how egregious the thing that Donald Trump was doing.
Well, yeah, it disturbs me quite a bit because I thought W was really bad. I mean,
Yeah.
W was a kleptocracy. He was just enabling people to get rich people to get more money. That was his whole thing. And then he decided, then he let some really, really bad people influence his foreign policy and so forth. And we a lot of our people killed. We killed a lot of other people, and we destroyed and then they destroyed the economy. That was really bad. Saw my net worth go down by almost 50%. This is really bad, I said. So when Trump came along, I thought, okay, this is going to be bad, but possibly we can weather it. And my what I had actually forgotten was that there were, and it started with Newt Gingrich. I lay it at his feet when he started primarying everybody in his party that wasn't an extremist, started going after his own people who weren't extremists. So it didn't dawn on me exactly. I kind of knew that a large portion of the Republican Party was extremist and only for giving money to rich people. But that has pretty much been the go-to for Republicans since 1900 or a little before, probably. That's been their go-to. That's it. That's all. Save money, save the rich money, and give them some of the money that the poor people have now. That's the Republican line, right? But I thought, okay, there are still some. There's John McCain. There's a few others that have some personal integrity. I was wrong. John McCain is dead.
Yeah.
All right. John McCain is dead. And that's a shame because there was nobody to replace him. There's not a decent person left in the Republican Party. And don't talk to me about Susan Collins or the other one who always tries to walk a middle ground. What's her name? The one from Maine. That's right. Um, they're not decent either because they always fold. They want to pretend they're decent, but they're not. They always fold. And we get people like Kristi Noem, who goes from being a governor of South Dakota shooting the family dog, and now she's doing all of this stuff for Trump. All of these people, Pam Bondi, these people are right on a par with Darth Vader. I mean, you have to go to fiction to come up with people that are as bad as these people actually are.
Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins is
Right.
the worst of the worst. And the way I would make the analogy is that in this world you have racists, blatant, in your face racists. You hate them, but you know who you're dealing with. But then you have racists that act like they're not racist. And to me, they're more dangerous. And that's the same with Murkowski and Collins. They come out, oh, we care about people. We're doing things for people. And then they fold at the last minute. Lisa Murkowski, to me, is one of the worst people because she was talking about how Donald Trump was doing so many bad things. And then the moment she thought she was going to be able to cut a deal for her own state and fuck everybody else, she jumped on board. And then when she found out she got fucked too, she cried and whined about it and was mad at Donald Trump. That human being is a horrible representative of people for this country. And to me, they're more dangerous than the people like Jim Jordan, who we know who we're dealing with.
Exactly. I did a TikTok on that. The racist versus I'm not a racist. The person who says, well, I'm not a racist, but, and you know they're getting ready to tell you something horrible about some minority, but they're not a racist. Those are the people, those are the trouble. You can see a racist, the flat on racist, you can just slap them upside the head and keep going. Because you know you're not going to change their mind, but it's the I'm not a racist. Those are the ones who really cause the big problems.
Probably some. There was a creator who said, "If you're white and you're not racist, why are you not racist?" And my answer to that is because it just doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any sense that, if you, well, you got gray hair, so you must be a whatever, a
Yeah.
bad person. This is the
Hmm.
same thing. It's an aesthetic. My wife has blue eyes, and when she was teaching in North Minneapolis, where it's predominantly black, these kids never saw anybody with blue eyes. They're going,
Hmm.
wow, they thought it was cool or scary or whatever. And that's the problem. Everybody's scared about somebody who's not like them in some way. But there's a real easy way to test that. Just talk to the people and see. If they're assholes, okay, you can hate the guy. But if they're not, understand that the aesthetics of somebody, like I'm an old white guy, and I walk down the street and I guarantee you there's Trump fucks look at me and they go, oh, there's one of my guys. Until they
Hmm.
come up talking to me and they don't know what the fuck to do then because he ain't talking uh, like what I believe. The whole concept just makes no fucking sense. There's no logic or common sense to it. Uh, but I think it's that the Republicans' whole strategy as a party has always been we've got to pick out people that we're afraid of so we can look like we're fighting against them, whether they be black people, transgender people. Uh, we've got the Supreme Court coming up here, and they're going to decide. It sounds like they're going to decide on gay marriage.
Hmm.
And if they vote the wrong way, they could essentially outlaw gay marriage. Well, that's pretty fucked up.
It is
I did
fucked
hear
up.
it's ridiculous. I was talking to somebody who uh, who has trouble with gay people, and I said, listen, I don't give a fuck about anybody's sex life unless I'm having sex with them. If I'm not having sex with them, not my motherfucking business.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. I've got two friends, and one of them is a highly placed official in one of the two twin cities. I'm referring to these people, not that because I think anybody would go after them or anything, but I'm respecting their privacy. All right.
Right, right, right.
He happens to be white and gay. His partner, uh, um, husband, wife, his partner happens to be a black man, Air Force veteran, and super cool guy. I love them both to death, right? They've been married now since they got married the year that it was allowed. Okay, they adopted two special needs kids and raised them. Both are thriving. They're doing very well right now. I think they're out of the home now. They're I know they were both, in higher education, and these were kids who were deemed to be um, unadoptable. Okay, not for these two guys,
Right.
and they raised them. The I'm going to call them A and B. A is the white guy, B is the black guy. B stayed at home and became the house, fulfilled the domestic. And he also worked part time in a couple of places and so forth. They started a music festival that they have every summer, just the two of them, and it's huge. These are quality individuals. These are people who gave back. Everything they do has been a positive. And you're telling me that there's something wrong with their marriage because some 6,000-year-old prohibition from some desert tribesman says that there's something wrong with their relationship? Fuck you to high heaven. Fuck you to high heaven. And I know I have a number of lesbian couple friends, essentially the same thing. Again, a black-white couple who adopted three kids and raised them, and they're all successful. I know plenty of white people who can't stay married, okay, and don't raise their kids, and their kids wind
Well,
up dead. So
yeah.
no, I will fight to the last instance for these people to be able to be who they are and live their lives in a positive manner. Just those two couples alone have given back far more than most white couples I know.
Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. They say one thing, but they do another. Um, and we know how badly the Trump administration is working against LGBTQ folks and transgender folks.
And they don't care. I mean, some
They
of them
don't
do.
care.
The Johnsons and people like that do. The ones influenced by religion to some point, and it's a very limited religion and a false one, but that's where they're coming from. But most of these guys could give a crap. It's just something they can use to weaponize to distract you from the fact that they're picking your pocket.
It's beneficial to them, but I think the people that I have the most problem with when it comes to this, we know what the Trump administration wants to do to LGBTQ people. Um, Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, he's solidly behind Donald Trump. Everything Donald Trump says. Scott Bessent is openly gay. Scott
Mhm.
Bessent is legally married to somebody else. They have two children that they got through surrogacy. And this fucker can stand next to Donald Trump and be proud of what he's doing. When he sees this party decimate his fucking community, there is nothing more despicable. If I sat down with Scott Bessent, I would say that. How can you do this? You are fucking horrible. You don't care about anybody else, whether they're in your community or not. All you care about is money and power, and you had that before you met Donald Trump. So what the fuck is wrong with you?
I have to believe that they think they'll be exempt somehow.
Well, I think they all did. I mean, I think a lot of
Yeah.
voters thought they were going to be exempt, and they fucked around and found out that
Mhm.
no, they're getting hammered too. But if they
Yeah.
outlaw legal marriage somehow, what's Scott Dissent going to do? Is he going to get a pass because he's money and connected to Trump? I don't know.
That's what he thinks, I'm sure. It's like the Cubans in Florida who are getting deported now, who were big supporters of Trump. It's FAFO, right? But I do have some sympathy because they thought, well, he's just going to get rid of the bad guys, or they told themselves. Who am I kidding? I don't have any sympathy. I'm sorry, I don't. You should have known. You should have known. And look at our Secretary of State. That's the background he comes from. He comes from Cuban immigrants, and yet he is leading the charge to get rid of. He's not doing anything for his community that I know of. He's right in there saying, "Oh, this is what we got to do." I got mine. I got mine.
These people, yeah, I got mine. Fuck you, people. These people don't care about anything about the country. I mean, I think you can largely say that about a large percentage of politicians. They do
Of
it for
any stripe.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, of any stripe, Democrats or Republicans. I mean, one good example of that is everybody in fucking Congress takes money from APAC.
Yep.
And call me an anti-Semite if you want. I think all kinds of big money coming into Congress should be stopped. And I think APAC should be stopped too. Because I don't understand why we have to bow and scrape to Israel, send them a bunch of money for fucking nothing at the cost of all of us. We send money to them, they have free healthcare. We don't. We send money to them, they have free college. We don't. Why is it we can subsidize that for Israel? And it's because of the money coming into the members of Congress. They just perpetuate that bullshit because they're making money on it. And that's what's frustrating. There's very few people in politics today. I'm not saying there's none, but there's very few people in politics today that understand the job and are doing the job they were fucking elected for. This is just a cash grab for a lot of people, Democrats included, that just don't fucking get it or do get it and just don't care.
Well, yeah, I was watching this thing the other day of this lady who was Joni Ernest was having the Iowa senator was having a meet and greet or whatever, some kind of town hall, whatever, and this woman showed up because she wanted to question her vote on the quote big beautiful bill. This woman had a child who was profoundly at birth needed a lot of care to the tune of $1.2 million over several years that Medicaid paid for. And she was saying, this would, if I lose this, then my child loses all this care. And Joni just gave, nice to meet you, and walked off. This should be senators and
Just walked off.
representatives. Pardon?
She didn't just walk off. What she did is she immediately grabbed the press guy and said, "Well, he can talk to you." No, bitch,
Right.
you're the fucking senator. You tell me. You voted for it. You fucking tell me. That's a
Exactly.
problem.
They should be forced to justify, and they should be forced to meet with people that are negatively impacted by their votes. But you see this all the time where they pretend to be on the phone and just keep walking. My response to that, and I don't encourage anyone to attack anyone, but my response is I would like to slap that phone through the side of their head because they're making a decent salary to do very little work, quite frankly. They do not break a sweat, and yet they are determining things that profoundly affect the lives of people. And they are getting, they're getting a salary, but they're making all of their money from lobbyists and deals on the side. We know that. They should at least be willing to listen to their constituents.
I think so. And they're flat out liars because when they're
Yeah.
running for reelection or election, they say, "I want to help you. I want to do this. I want to do that." And that's the crazy thing about Republicans. They make all these claims, we're fiscally responsible, but we added 7 trillion to the debt. It's just constant lies. And we always hear about how the Democrats are bad at messaging. They don't understand how time after time, decade after decade, the Republicans say we're going to do this, then the economy crashes, everybody suffers, a Democrat gets in, and then they just jump back onto that fucking lie. It's like
Yeah.
nobody learns a fucking lesson.
Never. Never. And that's why I say that unless you develop critical thinking skills early on, probably by third grade, you never will. You will have to reply. You will have to depend on rumor, prejudice, um, instinct, and the lies that Fox News give
Yeah, Gene saying, I think we need an entirely different culture for the Democrats. When we see people like Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and they want to do what they've always done, I don't understand it because it hasn't worked in the last 10 years. So why not try something different? I think the key to the Democratic Party is if they can change the culture, get more younger people in there. And we're at a point, whether it's distasteful to you or not, we've got to get down in the dirt and fucking fight and get dirty if they're getting dirty and do whatever the fuck we got to do. Because it's not just about winning the election, it's about saving the country and democracy. This is not a time to say, well, I want to be the bigger person. No, motherfucker, I'm going to kick you in the nuts.
Well, I agree with you 1,000%. I saw something this morning that encouraged me. Trump took over the Kennedy Center, and every year they have the Kennedy Center honors, right? Which salutes people who have done well in their particular areas, right? Well, he wants to take that over, and he actually wants to be the MC of this thing, and he wants to pick the people and so forth. Well, one of the people he picked was for a Lifetime Achievement Award was Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise said, "No, I'm too busy. No, I'm not doing it." And apparently he
Great.
wanted to force him to do it. But, well, quite frankly, Tom Cruise is probably more powerful, unfortunately, than the president. And I have my problems with Tom Cruise. But the other guy was George Strait. And George Strait has said straight up, no, I ain't going to be there. I ain't going to perform. I'm not going to accept the award. I don't want anything to do with it. And apparently he got really pissed off because Trump said something about how good looking he was. He said, that's got nothing to do with my music, and basically he told Trump to take a flying leap. That is encouraging.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because one of the other groups he's bringing in, he must have thought they were drum bumpers, is KISS. But and while Gene Simmons is probably conservative and Republican and all that stuff, in recent years, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons have talked shit about Donald Trump. It'll be interesting if they say, "I'm going to stand by my convictions and say fuck you," or just go accept the thing. And the other one that amazed me was Gloria Gaynor.
Yeah.
I don't understand that because isn't she a one-hit wonder? I mean, I love Gloria Gaynor. I love the song that she sang in the disco era, but she's only got one hit as far as I know.
Well, as a performer, though, I think she had a lasting presence, and I think she's been in Vegas for years and things like that. I think she culturally, I think she had an impact. I would not say she's up there with a Beyonce or a Taylor Swift or most of the others. I don't know. Maybe Trump just likes disco. I don't know.
I'm an entertainer, a professional entertainer, and I find out that Donald Trump is going to be the MC. You know this is going to be a fucking mess. It's going to
Yeah.
be horrible because he's not a good MC. He's going to ramble. I mean, what was he talking about? God, I can't remember who the star was. He was talking about this star that's supposed to be coming to this. And he says, you can see him on the Walk of Fame in Los Angeles. And when people see there's only one other one that's bigger, and that's mine. He's comparing himself to a huge star. And if you go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you find garbage and dog shit on his Walk of Fame.
All the time.
It's hilarious. I mean, well, what is it
There's
with?
a daily changing of the dog shit, I think, because
Well,
it
yeah,
is always there.
it's like in Scotland on his. I talked to a lady from Scotland when he was over there, and she follows me on TikTok, and we talked on the live, and she said um, for some time now, people in Scotland will go to each hole of his golf course and take a shit on each one of the holes. In fact, they had to hire somebody to clean it up every fucking day. That's
I
got to
love
tell
the
you something.
Scots. Yeah, I love
I
the
do too.
Scots. When they were showing the protesters greeting him when he got there. My favorite one was this little old lady who had a sign. And apparently it's a common Scottish phrase. There's even a song, I think. It's called Bolt Ya Nutter. In other words, beat it, you idiot. And I thought that was just perfect. And I've now incorporated that into I use that a lot. Bolt Ya Nutter.
It's funny. What troubles me about the media, and I think the media, the mainstream media, the network news, I mean, they're all just a waste. There's really no point in watching it because they've all bent the knee to Donald Trump. They have no more journalistic integrity anymore. Um, but if you look deep enough into Washington, D.C., there are tons of protests there, tons. Same with Los Angeles, but you never see the media reporting it. And I'm
No.
wondering, is that something coming up from on high? Don't talk about the
Yes.
bad shit.
Yes. I'm sure it
Oh,
is because, there are a number of Midas Touch Network and some others that are doing that on TikTok, and you actually see the amount of people who are out there. But it has to be coordinated with the networks that's just not showing it. I didn't see the guy getting hit with the sandwich on network TV. I saw it on TikTok. So many other things that you just do not see. Obviously, the networks are downplaying this, which means they are no longer operating in the public interest, so that they should be done away with. That remember we had to toe the line. We had to show. I had to keep a book when I was news director at the station we worked for, and a file showing our public service, what we were doing every quarter. I had to be able to defend that and say, this is what we did. We gave this much time to public service announcements. We gave this much time to coverage of various and sundry things. I had to be able to justify that so that our FCC requirements were kept up to date. I had to go to meetings once a month where we brought in people to talk to, the whole, it was called the ascertainment group. Me and a representative from every other broadcast entity in Minnesota would get together and we would bring in guests to tell us from various sectors, financial and um, uh, medical, whatever it may be. How are we doing as media in serving the public interest? And sometimes we got raked over the coals by some people, but we took notes on it and then we had to show how we addressed that. So they should still have to adhere to that standard. They're not doing that anymore.
Towards the end here, and I think you're the right person to ask about this because I've been getting kind of annoyed. We know that Donald Trump and the Trump administration and the Republicans have taken away from money from NPR and PBS. Now, I was talking to a Trump-fuck that I didn't know was a Trump-fuck. He's kind of in my family, not really in my family. He's family adjacent, um, but he's one of those guys that claims not to vote for Trump, but everything he says sounds like fucking Trump. Once
Yeah.
again, somebody without the courage of admitting what they believe, but still trying to argue with you against logical things. And this guy was sitting there trying to tell me that Donald Trump won by 7 million votes. I go, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. I said, I can pull it up on my phone here right now.
Yeah.
So I pull it up and it just comes up on Wikipedia. He goes, oh, Wikipedia, anybody can put anything in there. I go, fuck you. I said, okay. I pulled up another one and it says NPR, which is a respectable journalistic source. And he looks at me and he says, oh, that thing, that doesn't even exist anymore. I go, what? Are you telling me NPR doesn't exist because Donald Trump said so? They took money away from NPR and PBS, but they ain't gone. They
No.
ain't leaving.
I think what he's referencing is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting has said because they won't be receiving any funding, they're going to have to wind down their operations because they have nothing to do if they have no money to grant. That does not mean that National Public Radio or public television is going away. They are most, I think about 8% I saw for NPR and some others, because quite frankly, for many, many years, even where we worked, we did not depend on funds from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We got a small equipment grant. That was it. When we were there, about 15 grand, which was a drop in the bucket, where our expenditures were close to $1 million, right? Every year, with salaries and other things. But so it was a drop in the bucket. They helped things get started, and then they gave grants for special things and so forth, operating grants. The ones that are going to be hurting are the KMOJs and the KFAIs, the community radio stations that got more. They have to find ways to supplement that. But most of the NPR stations, certainly public radio, public television, are dependent on underwriting and fundraising from their listeners. Neither one is going to go away.
Neither one is going to go away. And that's the thing. When I sit and talk to somebody and said, oh, that doesn't exist anymore, I looked at them and I said, do you even understand how anything fucking works? It hasn't
No,
gone away. Yeah, it has because Donald, fuck you. No, it didn't. Try to read once in a while, for fuck's sake.
no. He was somebody probably told him that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was going away, which technically you could say that it probably is. I'm betting that they're going to batten down the hatches, and hope for the midterms, and that things will be reversed. But right now,
There will be,
they were laying off people because literally, if you have no money to grant, you can't make grants.
I can't give this guy too much credit because when he said that, that was before the announcement of the CPB. It was
Yeah,
before that. So he just said Donald Trump said so, so that's the way it is. And that's the problem. You know, they always talk about Democratic messaging, but the Republicans constantly tell lies. They're proven their lies, and they still believe it. It can only be. I tell people, I say, look, you can only be one of two things. You're either evil or you're stupid. And
yeah,
because I'm a positive guy, I'm going to give you that you're fucking stupid
yeah.
because you have to be stupid or just not interested in finding the truth. And I think that's to a large degree the problem with the Republicans. They just want to hear what they think they believe in. And as long as it agrees with them, then it's absolute fact. If it goes against them, I had a guy come to my Substack, which is weird because I don't get too many Trump fucks there. And he said to me, well, if if the Epstein files were so bad for Trump, why didn't Joe Biden release them? I said, wait a minute, motherfucker. First of all, Epstein was convicted, tried, tried and convicted, sent to prison, and died under Donald Trump's term. Why
Yeah.
didn't he do that? And I said, secondly, Biden gets into office. He's got a few problems. Maybe he could have released it, but that whole court case was done. There was no reason for him to get involved in it because the Democrats weren't screaming for this shit. The Republicans were. And I said, we had a little problem with the economy that had to be fixed and was fixed by Joe Biden. He goes, oh, sure, you're going to go to the economy. I go, absolutely, I'm going to the economy. I said,
Well,
now explain to me why you Republicans are so intent about Jeffrey Epstein, and your guy who says he's going to release it gets in, and now he says no. That's Biden's fault? Fuck you.
Well, the other thing is people forget that the Ghislaine Maxwell case was ongoing during Biden's term, and that would have been seen, releasing those files would have been seen as prejudicing the case. And I think there was actually an injunction against doing so. And that's your answer to why Biden didn't release them. But probably it was more like that he was interested in doing the infrastructure bill, which I saw, and I don't remember, Nancy Mace maybe or somebody was trying to take credit for something that she voted against. And when the reporter pointed it out, she immediately attacked the reporter as being a leftist, right? Even though she was trying to take credit for something she literally voted against.
Some people will attack me and say, well, you're just a liberal. So, so what? At least I'm not a pedophile. And I
Yeah.
think, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm kind of a different guy than most Democrats because I'm not really a Democrat. I'm just an asshole, which I'm proud of. I think what we need to do is continue to embarrass Donald Trump and attach this whole pedophile thing not only to Donald Trump, but every Republican that supports Donald Trump or the MAGA people. Because as far as I'm concerned, uh, pedophiles are the worst of the worst. Okay, and if you support the worst of the worst, we can only presume that you're one of them. You're at least an accessory after the fact, and that in itself is fucking despicable.
Exactly. Now, let me give you an example of how, and you said stupid. I was going to say, well, maybe it's more willfully ignorant because stupid is, I usually think of that as a condition that you can't control. If you're stupid, you're
Right,
stupid. But if
right.
you're willfully ignorant, that's something you can control and it's worse. However, I put up a TikTok a day or two, a while back, last week sometime, and it was just a text piece with a background of Cardi B money. And it was that Trump makes a big deal that he donates his salary of $400,000, and he gets some more than that. So let's give him say $800,000, right? It's something,
Right.
but it's in that neighborhood. But he benefits. He gets a lot more than that when he goes to his resorts to play golf. He takes his whole retinue, they have to stay there, and he charges premium rates. So in his first term and what's so far in this one, he has taken in from that more than 400 times that salary he supposedly donates, right? So he is actually making far more money than any other president ever has by while in office by doing that, by making the government pay for his people to stay in the places that he owns so he gets the money for that. Well, for some reason, because usually I filter comments because I just don't want to deal with them, but for some reason that filter broke or whatever because I was just inundated by all of these Trumpers. And it amazed me how stupid they couldn't get that concept. Well, Biden took vacations. Biden played golf. How much did Obama do? Blah, blah, blah. But what about? Never really getting the concept that Trump owns the. Well, if he owns it, he doesn't have to pay. He doesn't, but everybody else does. And they just could not and it wasn't that they were fighting the concept; they just could not understand it, and just it boggled my mind that there were that many stupid people because that was stupidity. They weren't able to process what I was talking about. And even though there were people defending what I had said and trying to explain it to them, it was a waste of time because it is coming back. What about, what about, what about? And of course, their figures were wildly off because we know that during his 4 years, the total price for, and I'm going with a high figure here, for Biden to go home to, his house and all of that, where he stayed for free, by the way, and didn't charge the government a dime. Um, it came to like $30 million over 4 years, which seems like a lot, but when you realize what all it goes for, it isn't. But Trump's was up in the $200 million range. That's the difference. And that's, anyway,
But it's not,
I
it's
did.
not even, it's not even his places. This is the last thing we'll talk about because we're going over here. But he not only goes to Mar-a-Lago, he not only goes to his resorts. Donald Trump flies to fucking Saudi Arabia with the
Yeah,
intent of cutting a deal for his own fucking businesses. He goes to
right.
Scotland to cut a deal for his own things. And somebody suggested this, and this is the last thing we'll talk about, but I want to see what you think. Somebody presumed or heard a rumor that the whole tariff thing was about going into each one of these individual countries and cutting a deal for his own businesses, his
I
own kids,
guarantee you. I guarantee
using
you.
that as leverage to get that done.
Yeah, I would guarantee you that that is exactly why. Or else Stephen Miller said, look, they used to bring in all this tariff money and we don't do that anymore, back in the 1880s. But
You know,
where Trump keeps trying to tell us was the most prosperous era in America, it was for a few people. Yeah. But for everybody else, it was horrible. But he doesn't care. I mean, I really do think on some level, I think he's so far gone that he would like, and maybe some of the others are the same way, because I tend not to project onto people really the totality of their evil. I mean, a Hitler, a Pol Pot, someone like that, yes. But some others, I try to give a benefit of the doubt and think this or that. But at this point, I'm thinking he's just fucking pure evil.
or he's, yeah, it's evil, but it's all he does this performative stuff just to benefit himself. I think it's not that he's specifically going out to be evil. It's that he's willing to be evil to benefit himself. He's willing to
Yeah,
do anything to benefit himself. And
yeah,
so if
that's
that
pretty
means a
much
little
it.
bit of evil, yeah, that's fucking crazy. Well, Ed, thank you for coming on. You're an old guy. I'm an old guy. Uh, we pushed through an hour and a half, and I don't know about you, but I'm fucking winded.
Yeah, me too. I need my pudding and my nap.
Yeah, pudding and nap. That sounds really good. That sounds really good. Well, thank you for coming on. We'll talk to you hopefully next week. Everything works out, but you and I have tight schedules, so it doesn't always match up.
That's right. You take care now. Say hi to
The only
Cindy.
reason the only reason you and I don't get together sometimes almost always revolves around a doctor's appointment, either yours
Yes,
or mine or my wife.
yes, or family. Yeah,
We could
one
do
or the
it, but
other.
I got a
Yeah,
doctor's appointment. So let's hopefully
exactly.
that will be the case. Thank you, Ed. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time to do it. Hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.